How do you convince people to pay a pretty absurd price for a product that's normally very traditionally cheap?
The biggest signal you send to the customer is your price. It's what you think about yourself, really. It's really important when you're pitching your product to all the entrepreneurs out there to put the people that are listening to your pitch in the problem. When I started pitching Saxx early, I'd always be like, it's the 16th hole on the golf course. You're with your buddies. It's 85 degrees out. Could you be more comfortable? We sold 90% of it in 2011.
It was all really fast.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really fast. Canada was going to legalize cannabis. You had to build the whole facility out before they'd even come inspect it. So we literally put like millions of dollars out
Before even having
any
a
chance.
license.
This time there was 0 federal cannabis licenses. So you were really hoping for that lottery, right?
Probably like the equivalent of like opening up a bar, like
Yeah.
hoping that you get a liquor license, right?
100%.
You have to have grit as an entrepreneur and persistence. Health Canada would always tell us, no, you're not going to get a license. Every day, no's. And we would politely say, thank you. We'll fix that right away. We took the company public. We raised capital. The stock price is going up. Capital is going up. It's Friday afternoon and I get a call that says we're going to be getting acquired. Canopy Growth came in on a Friday and made us an offer we couldn't refuse. We agreed to sell the company, and the valuation at that time was approximately $180 million. Over that time, as we're waiting for our deal to close, Canopy got acquired by Constellation Brands. That turned the value of our transaction into $630 million.
All right, I'm fired up. This came out of nowhere, so thank you guys so much for doing this. Thank you, Phil, for setting it up. Trent and Ria Kitsch, you guys are extremely successful founders. You built and sold multiple companies for hundreds of millions. I won't exactly say how much, but I say that because unfortunately a lot of young people have to hear a number in order to get inspired. I think that's unfortunate, but I think your guys' story as is crazy. So thank you for coming on. And I've so many things to ask. I have a little list right here, but I'd first like to start with my favorite underwear of all time, Saxx.
Yeah.
What's the backstory behind it? Where'd the idea come from? How did you come up with the name?
Yeah.
Tell us a little background.
I'll take you to August 2006 in a fishing boat near Alaska in the Haida Gwaii in British Columbia. The Queen Charlotte Lodge. I was fishing there with my dad for 3 days, and this is like open ocean salmon fishing. And if you're familiar with the show, The Deadliest Catch, they wear
Stepdad loves it.
They wear the big red ocean suits to protect them in case they fall in. And so we were wearing those, and I think as all guys can relate to, in 2006 can be uncomfortable, and you're out on the boat, and I was in like the front triangle part. So I was sitting there like this for about 3 days.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah. Because I was giving my dad the VIP seat back there.
Yeah.
So we were fishing, and you know, on the first day, you have a lot to talk about with your dad. There's things to discuss, you know, fishing. Second day, it's much quieter on the boat, and by the third day, it's literally like quiet for hours, you know. So
You said you were how old again?
I would have been 25 at that time.
Okay.
And so, as I say, I was staring off to China, just beautiful, like flat sea and uncomfortable. And I just was thinking to myself, how could I reinvent men's underwear to prevent contact and be more comfortable? And that was like the question to myself in my brain, just quietly. And immediately into my mind's eye started visioning the Saxx side panels, which became the Saxx side panels.
The ball pouch.
That's
now
right.
Called the ballpark
Yeah.
pouch.
And I was a back catcher in a previous life. I'd played baseball for a long time. So I'd always been around jocks and cups and things to try to protect your package, but not usually in a comfortable way, a really hard and aggressive way.
Yeah.
And so from that experience, I started to morph that hard design into something that was soft, just in my brain. And my brain kind of works in like a 3D way. It kind of rotates and looks at things from the top and the side and almost like blueprints.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just what I saw in my mind's eye. It just started spinning up there, this like little 3D diagram of the internal design of a innovation evolution on men's underwear. And so when I got back to camp that night into the cabin, started, as all good entrepreneurs do, you know, drawing the first vision
Hell yeah.
of how to take that thing from your mind into reality. So that was like the inspirational moment and the question of myself. And it was just a really fortuitous time because about 3-4 days later, I was going back to do my second year of my master's of business in grad school. And there was a project called the New Venture Project. So I decided I was going to pitch that to the professors to see if they would let me try my experiment.
Nice. And was that your first business ever? First venture? Or had you done any sort of
well, that's
entrepreneurial
an interesting story.
endeavors before that?
No, what I didn't, I don't think I have anything really going, but I was always like a little side hustler, like getting the hockey tickets for free and then selling them for like $5 and you know.
Had that media thing with Ben. I don't know if that was before, but
I had a couple of, had the idea for like digital display advertising. It was called Think Media TV. This is like way ahead of its time.
Ahead, yeah.
Well, you talk about timing is everything all the time. Maybe a couple years later, that would have been big.
Yeah, no, I think about that sometimes, but I was raised by a family of entrepreneurs, so that I think had influence on it for sure. And being in grad school, I really wanted to start a business someday, but that day going out fishing, I never thought I was going to be in the underwear game.
So there's so many entrepreneurs that talk about like product market fit, the research behind, is there a market for this in the first place? Did you do any of that, or were you like, did you look at this and be like, there's a spot here for me? Or did you just say, I just want to make something for myself? And then
it was basically first doing it for myself, or just to kind of see if I could take something and see if it was real and try it out. It's kind of like, I think all business is like a big experiment. And so I was curious and I thought it was a great idea, but I also wanted to make it and try it on and feel it and get it to, you know, people to see what their opinions were going to be. So I needed some money, right? And so I go back to grad school and pitch the professors on this great idea, and they thought it was a terrible idea. They thought it was a joke. They thought it was bad.
Typical, right?
And so I had to go through a few professors, but this one professor, Dave Simpson, gave me a chance and said, you know, this kid's passionate. I also don't think it's a good idea, but like, let's let him prove it, or let's let him try. And so Dave Simpson gave me my kind of key to the New Venture Project. And then I took it really serious and set out down the road to build the first pair of Saxx.
Hell yeah.
And I would say, like, when you refer to that timing, you did feel like underwear hadn't changed since the 90s with Calvin Klein's innovation, but more marketing, really, boxer briefs and Marky Mark.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, their product market fit, or is there a market for it, was a little bit a yes already, because it's like, why hasn't anything changed for so long? Why has it been the same for so long? And any market, you could kind of look at that. If something hasn't changed for a long time, you can kind of say to yourself, there's maybe an opportunity to innovate just on that basis.
Yeah. If no one's looking at it, then that's where the opportunity is, kind of. I totally agree.
And it's also like, I always say entrepreneurship is just problem recognition. So if you can recognize problems, there's a chance you're an entrepreneur. And then if you're going to take that next step and invent a solution or create a solution, now you're on the path, you know, and then if you can make a sale, now you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's like, it's really as simple in terms of starting as going from that whole statement of, I wish this existed, to I'm going to do it myself, right? And having that confidence to do so. Because I think it is confidence at the end of the day, because I think most people are terrified of failure, and going out and doing something like that, as you explained with your professors, and I'm sure some friends and peers probably were like, that's dumb. But look at it now. So I think it takes, I think, do you guys think a certain type of person is born an entrepreneur and it's just waiting to hatch? Or do you think a certain set of experiences kind of lead you to that point?
I think there's a special sauce that all sorts of people have that's uniquely their own. So I think it's a combination of those things that make someone uniquely set up to do whatever it is that they're going to do or be successful in. And they might not know it, but if they combine and believe in themselves and, you know, speak a few languages, or really passionate about music and venues, then there's some spot in the marketplace for all your passions, and you will kill it in that industry or that place.
Yeah.
You know? And I think to your question about like no's, it's basically being comfortable with being told no and being curious. I think all great entrepreneurs are very curious people.
Definitely.
you know?
It's kind of that nature versus nurture eternal question. And I think like a lot of people are going to be more well-natured to be an entrepreneur, but you can also nurture the skills, like get comfortable with failure, get comfortable with no's, find something that you're really passionate about, be okay having to be your own boss and motivate yourself. If you can kind of build those skills, anyone could be, but they're easier for people where that comes natural. And like Trent is naturally very confident in his abilities, and he's also very confident with no's because he was in baseball, so it's like lots of failure. So those all added up. And then growing up in a family that was entrepreneurial was like another stacking of kind of the path being available easily versus having to learn it for your first time and struggling maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And so your family was pretty supportive when you said, Dad, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Or did you not tell him?
No, I just, that was like my market research basically on the boat. Like, hey, Dad, like, is your package like stuck on your legs? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, are you uncomfortable? And he's like, yeah. And that's like all the market
I'm going to do
research
something about this.
Yeah, then I did.
So next time you see me, we're going to have a solution to this problem.
Yeah. And so I got back to university, and as all entrepreneurs do, right, you need some capital to come up with your idea and manifest it. And so I had a tuition invoice from the University of Western Ontario, and I took that to the Royal Bank of Canada, and I said I needed a student loan. And in like 15-20 minutes, I had 20 grand, and I was really going to put that all into Saxx. I told myself this was my little allocation to my curiosity mix to, see if I can make it real. And so then just wanted to prove it, that I could do it. And so I went to the Fanshawe College where they had a fashion school and pitched the college dean there. And she thought it was a bad idea. And she thought I was there just to like try to pick up girls. And so I was fortunate enough to persuade her that no, like I'm really here for the fashion and I think it's a great idea and I want to make a pair. And she saw my passion and she introduced me to a girl named Cara Megan, who was a great designer and someone who had originally already done an underwear project by Fortune the year before that. Mm-hmm. So she had some patterns and things, and we met, and I told her I would give her $1,500 to make the patterns. And that was the first money out. And then we set about figuring out the dimensions and the, shapes and the fabrics and those things that created Saxx ultimately.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys, there's a question I like to ask a lot of the guests on. Obviously, you're very successful now. Do you think when you were younger, you knew you were going to be where you are today, or are you surprised by it?
I am actually humbly surprised by how far we've come and we've come together. Not that I didn't ever expect to be successful, but actually my dreams were really big then. And now we're excelling or going past our dreams of that.
That's got to be
time.
Awesome.
So,
especially together.
Yeah. And it's really humbling sometimes, you're walking down the Strand in Manhattan Beach and the dolphins are jumping up out of the waves and it's so beautiful. And it's a Canadian boy's dream,
Yeah, I'd say I'm surprised also. I came from employees, so I was not expecting ever to be in an entrepreneurial lifestyle. And then I also was pretty simple. I was raised by a single mom. I'm just really a minimalist actually at heart. So to have kind of anything possible feels a little bit almost overwhelming to me because I didn't really think that was where I would be. But what's nice is we have done it together, and so it kind of makes you feel like you can do anything. You have someone always with you, and you've already done so many things. So it's kind of like, what do you want to do next? And that's like a huge privilege and fun part of it all for sure.
That's got to be so awesome, knowing that you have someone there for you who not only wants to support you, but like push you further, right? Because I think so many people are terrified of coming home to their husband or wife and saying something and having them say, no, shut it down. Totally. Not going to happen on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Either of them wanting to chase their dreams. So that's got to be... I'd love to hear about that. How'd you guys meet, by the way? College, right?
No.
We met at Wakefest in the beer gardens.
So a beach festival in our hometown.
Yeah, some of our good friends who knew us individually introduced us together and then went on our kind of first dates. And
We'd both just finished business school.
I was just starting Saxx. I'd just come back from MBA school and had just come back from China and just was trying to, get everything off the ground. Really
like,
grinding.
What are you going to do after MBA school in the fall? And he's like,
I'm going to make underwear.
Well, no, he wasn't totally sure yet because it was still in a bit of a...
It was so early.
Yeah, it wasn't really in any stores yet. The e-commerce site was just getting built for the airing of the show Dragon's Den, which is the American Shark Tank equivalent. And it hadn't aired yet. So he's like, I might do this because like I'm going to see how the airing goes. And if a bunch of orders come in, like I'll have the site ready, then that'll be kind of my indicator that it's a good solution. I'm not making this up. I'm not the only one, or the 1,000 pairs I've sold are not the ceiling. And so he's like, if not, then I've got this path with my family's business. That's cool too. And I was like, oh, neat. Like, that's really interesting. I was working in my own job and he slowly started like recruiting me for things with Saxx. And first it was just guerrilla marketing. Then it was like, oh, can you help with like these spreadsheets or this, copywriting? And I love that stuff.
Come over for date night on Friday and then you come over, there's boxes of all right, we got to pack these.
Yeah.
Folding,
lots of packing orders.
Packing, mailing. We had the Saxx man. We would drive around like everywhere, festivals, concerts.
It was
events.
Fun. We had no kids.
Slept
we had no
in the
mortgage.
back.
It was chill.
One thing that I like to ask everyone on as well is like, what does it take, right? Because you guys both have awesome, really positive attitudes, which I also want to talk about later, and that kind of impact. But I think so many people, especially today, look at entrepreneurship as like the fun way, the escape from my 9 to 5, when in reality, it's so much more work, way more stressful. But I'm curious, like, what did it take for you guys? Did you have any sort of...
We had second jobs.
Yeah, definitely. And
Saxx wasn't...
I think you're right. Entrepreneurship is so glamorized, and some of the lowest points in my life were the points after I'd sold a company, and you're supposed to have the best time of your life, or you're supposed to be so happy, and I've been in plenty of valleys as an entrepreneur, and there's also peaks. So I think what it takes is, like I said earlier, curiosity, discipline, hard work, belief in yourself, and unwavering belief in the brand and the product, and
delusion almost in a way, right?
Reality distortion a bit.
Definitely. Like, no, they said yes, just we have to figure out why they said no.
Yeah.
I do think too, like, clarity now is more important than ever, because when we did it, it was 20 years ago almost, and there's so much more noise and distractions now. And I feel like if you're not super clear on what your most important milestones are, you're potentially going to go astray. Even by 1 or 2% will change where you land in a year. So if you're not really clear on what your milestones are, you may get attracted by all the shiny objects that are luring entrepreneurs to put their energy into.
Yeah.
And is that really the way? So I think clarity is really important. And I think support also. Entrepreneurship, what is not sold to you or told to you, is it's really isolating. It's really hard to find people that you can talk to about your struggles and your challenges because you're supposed to be doing so well. And if you're not, are you failing? Maybe I won't watch that anymore. It's going down. Like, no, I'm doing well. I'm just, everyone has these
part
challenges.
Of the journey.
But if you don't have anyone to talk to about that, or who could help, any mentors, any support, like entrepreneur organizations, which there are all over, then I think you will have a harder time. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's one of the really cool things about social media these days, though, is like, that's what I've seen is when you put yourself out on the internet, sure, you open up yourself to a lot of attack, and there's going to be people that are going to talk shit about you and criticize you, and even go out of their way to, like, honestly, like, push you down in a lot of ways. But
there is a lot of negative energy in the world, right?
Yeah.
But what I always say is, like, respectfully dust that off.
Yeah.
And if there's negative people in your circle, respectfully dust those people off. And that doesn't mean you have to tell them that, you're...
I don't follow you anymore.
It's kind of just like... You just want to surround yourself with the most positive people.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the people that chip your idea away the most are your parents or your partner or someone, your best friends. And, you know, I've had conversations with people that it's like, look, I'm doing this. It's going to be a success. So your negative wind in my sail
Yeah.
is not going to be on my boat much longer. I'm going to be going this way, you know, and sometimes you have to be honest with people that their negative energy isn't serving them either,
For
you
sure.
know?
Let's talk about that. I think that's so powerful. And I think a lot of people know that, and they might have big ideas or aspirations, you could say. Maybe they want to go be a baseball player, a singer, influencer, whatever, even a tattoo artist, and someone in their circle is shooting them down, right? How did you guys go about brushing that off? And did you have to get rid of any like really close people, family members, friends? What's the process for that?
Well,
how do you tell someone to respectfully go fuck yourself?
He's much better at it than I am, to be honest. I think it's like there are 7 billion people in this world. You have 24 hours in a day. Like, you can either let things lead you or you can lead them. You know, who are you texting to make time for? Who are you setting up meetings with? Like, that's all in your domain. So if you want to respectfully kind of brush someone off in your world, I think it's just disengaging. That's my maybe like not totally straightforward way, but it's if I really feel like someone's not someone I want to invest my time in, it's like I won't make time for them and they'll get the message. But you're a little more direct.
I also just say, you know, like a lot of people want inbound or time with me and say, hey, I want help with this or that.
I bet.
And I say, awesome. I'll see you at the base of Knox Mountain at 6:30 on Tuesday and AM, and the phone's quiet, you know? It's like,
okay, so that's interesting.
You know?
One of my good friends, he's like my age, he's like 24, runs a $700 million company. And I asked him the same thing. How do you tell people no? He says, I have a system I put everyone through.
That's right.
And if they pass the three
right.
gates, then they get my time. They get 15 minutes.
That's right.
So you actually tell them, like, if you want to talk to me, meet me at my...
Come for a hike at 6:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And it weeds out 75%.
And then if they show up, then you get to have a great outdoor hike and walk with somebody for a bit. And then you get a vibe if you're going to vibe with a person. And then you can, you know, ask a couple of questions. And right there, like she says, 95% of people aren't going to do it.
That's perfect, actually.
And you get your workout, like you get something done, like it's great.
Then you ask them, you know, see you next Tuesday.
Hell yeah.
And then do they show up again? Right? And the chances are, like, a lot of people weed themselves out by just the simple stuff.
Just the effort.
Just showing up.
It's crazy because some people, though, that seems like the best. Hell yeah, I'm coming. Like, I'll meet you there. I'll be there every single time. And from my perspective, I'm like, how could you say no to that opportunity?
Yeah.
Even if it is an hour and a half drive or something. But yeah, I guess most people do probably say no.
Well, and also the few that we've cultivated, now we've got a great community and other entrepreneurs that, you know, have learned that move, combined that move. And I've seen some amazing young entrepreneurs grow over the last 3, 4, 5 years since we started doing that. And also just so I'm proud. And
the hike specifically?
Yeah.
How many people go to that?
Tuesday morning at the base of Knox Mountain in Kelowna, BC, every Tuesday. And it started with myself and Dan Martell.
I was thinking in my head, Dan does something very similar. I didn't know that you guys do that
They
together.
started it together.
Oh, look at that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And it's kind of a rip out of Chip Wilson, actually, the founder of Lululemon.
That's why I started my brand.
Yeah, so that's what he used to do to people on the grouse grind. He would say, meet me at the grouse grind, and we'll do the grouse grind together. And then everybody, you know, didn't like the same story. So we kind of did the same pitch, but Kelowna. And then now, again, because of Dan's great work and awareness and building it up, it's sometimes, you know, 50, 60 people. And then on special ones, it's plus 100. But it's pretty incredible. A lot of people change their lives.
Hey, what do you think about this? Somebody else is trying to interrupt.
Well, what happens is it's all business people. So there's actually a lot of experts there.
Oh, okay.
So it becomes this great networking
So it's like
walk.
worth it even if you don't get to talk to the man or the main person in charge.
Well, yeah, it's pretty special because if you have a problem about X or Y or Z, there's somebody on the hike who's an expert in those.
Yeah.
And then I've learned a lot. You know, it's a great way to just stay healthy. But that's just one move I use. And other things I do is, you know, you have to ask people key questions. A lot of entrepreneurs pitch me on ideas and I listen to their idea and then I say, how much are you going to pay yourself next year? Or like, what's your compensation for your executive team?
Yeah.
And everybody wants 200 grand or 500 grand. And I just know right away they're not going to succeed. Their philosophy is incorrect at that stage of the business. You know,
that brings up a good question I have. It's like, at what point do you allow yourself to
Get paid.
treat yourself?
Mm-hmm.
well, in Saxx, we never treated ourselves for the first number of years. You know, we were just basically trying to eat and have a roof over our head and just like get the thing off the ground. So I think if you can forecast that you're going to be making money and be profitable, then definitely you should pay yourself accordingly. And there's lots of ways to look at what an industry standard is. And I'm on compensation committees on public companies now. And so you can really pin in approximately a range that you should be paid.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of selfish sometimes for CEOs and leaders to take big salaries at startups, and personally, just because they have all the equity. So I kind of come from a place where if you have more equity as a founder, you can share the equity with key people and then hopefully align incentives a little bit better than everybody making $250,000 or the CEO making $500,000. The company's not profitable. You're doing 3 or 4 extra rounds that you never needed to do, and you have 1 salesperson and 5 executives.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's just a misaligned incentive and philosophy there.
Yeah. Before Phil came on the team, I had a guy who like came out here to be my videographer and producer, quit without like really giving much explanation. That was the first time ever like someone really important to the bigger picture just dipped. And I asked a friend of mine, like, how do you get good people to stick around? He said, that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
He said, if you want people who are just as good and hopefully better than you to stick around, you gotta either pay them more than yourself as the CEO or vest them.
Get them
I
some
think
equity.
Options, warrants.
Yeah.
Those are all really good ways. And then also, I think you have to have a vision into the future. So maybe you're not paying yourself this year as a
Right.
founder and a CEO, but ultimately you do have to pay yourself, and you do have to pay yourself right. And the rewards should be great when you're successful.
Mm-hmm.
But at the start, I think you have to, kind of get your chops first before you deserve it almost.
It's really interesting. I find founders almost fall into 2 camps. They either like almost overcompensate themselves or don't compensate themselves at all and kind of falsify the financials, like about how profitable they are. And it's like, well, you haven't paid yourself. And so how would this run? Or how would that be if someone acquired this business? Like that's not. And so what we're really big believers in is writing a business plan and updating it every year. And it's something we even offer as a consultant service because it's so important as a roadmap. And that gives you your roadmap to compensation. When will you be at the financial place where you can pay all of these roles to what? And it becomes like the numbers tell the story for you. It's not like you have to pick the number. It builds itself out backwards from your sales goals and plan to get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a number you can achieve if you reach enough sales. You know, they work hand in hand.
For sure. And you got to reward yourself at the end of the day. With your guys' company, were you profitable since the start? Or what was that scaling process like at the beginning?
Ish, yeah. So my very first pair was $12.50 wholesale. I was selling them for $25, and then it cost me about $15 to make the very first 200 pairs.
Crazy, $15 a pair?
Yeah, to make the first run
absurd.
of 200. When I made the first run of 200 in Toronto, then I took the pairs, put them in little like plastic bags, printed off these little Avery labels, and then I sold the first 200 pairs in the student union at Western Ontario, set up a little table, just started slinging them to students.
Yeah.
Then I would go into like the equivalent of like a Starbucks parking lot, but it's Tim Hortons in Canada, and I'd sell pairs there because people would be coming out with all their money.
Right.
And then when I was on Saturdays, I would go down to Toronto and set up a little illegal booth in front of Lululemon, and then I would sell pairs on the street. And then when like the bylaw or the cops would come, I would see them coming. Then I'd just kind of like hide my little booth and break it down and go into an alley. And then when they'd go by, I'd bust it back out and sell there.
Oh, love that.
So yeah, I'd sell out of my van. I'd sell anywhere. And so I sold the first 200 pairs and then had enough money for 400 pairs because my cost was basically just like cycling
You're just flipping it.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then had enough money for 800 pairs, sold the 400 and expanded my distribution, went to like the nurses building and the education building, like the odd like runners event and just hockey rinks. And, I was just selling them to anybody. Have you heard of Saxx? I've said that 1 billion times. knowing full well the answer is always no, but that's my like hook,
Yeah.
you know? And so then that taught me at the end of school, I had sold all these pairs, but I was actually kind of like losing money or not making any money. So then with a relationship from one of my friends, a classmate, we went to China that summer to get low cost region supply and figure out how to get my costs down. And just right before we were going to go to China, we won the business plan competition eventually for the new venture project. So my terrible idea,
The one that everyone said was an ass idea.
was a terrible idea 6 months ago, was now the best idea. And we won the business plan competition for our school. Then we got to go to the national business plan competition. And then just by luck, in the audience of the business plan competition was a producer for Dragon's Den. And so then we got a call and, hey, do you want to do the den? And I'm like, yes, I would love to do the den, but I'm going to China in like 3 days. And they said, no problem, come out tomorrow. I was like, all right, I'll be there. They shot the den like the next day. Then like the next day I went off to China, and knowing it was going to air in like October. So that I had this window to kind of improve the business, get the cost down, get some more pairs, like get some inventory.
Create an e-commerce
and
site.
create an e-commerce site and all these things.
Before Shopify, this was like, you know.
Oh, back when it was,
we
actually
built,
hard.
Yeah.
Shopify made it really easy.
Yeah.
So we did all these things, and then the Dragon's Den show, we'd be maybe, selling $200 to maybe $1,000 a day on our online store just with our hustle and the little bit of buzz we'd
No
built
ads.
up. Not
No.
back in those days.
That's pretty
no.
solid. Back in those days, a couple thousand a day
And
for
it
a
was
startup.
very
clothing
expensive underwear at the time,
Yeah.
$25 to $50 or $25 to $40 a pair 20 years ago,
Yeah.
And so then the Dragon's Den airs, and then like the next day we sell like $40,000 on our website. The next day like 60,000 on the website, and then that's just one of those big breaks that we got. And then
it was like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. Like this is...
and then it was a big signal that let's move to Vancouver. And we actually won the Armchair Dragon Award for the best product that didn't get a deal in the den. So we got $50,000. That went like all into inventory. That turned out to be like, hundreds of thousands in revenue. So that was like a big break. My MBA professor at the end of school invested 5% for $50,000. So we came up to the valuation. It turned out to be a really good deal.
But he gave you guys the chance. He took the risk.
That's
so it's fair
right.
for him.
He believed.
Yeah. And we came up to the valuation I thought it was $1 million idea. You think it's $1 million idea. Otherwise, you wouldn't be even talking to me about it. We both think it's $1 million idea. So that's the valuation.
Yeah.
And then that's how we got off the ground.
No numbers, nothing.
Just the
Dude,
belief.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not about right now. It's about the potential, right?
Yeah.
And because he was his professor, he said in the person. So it's like, I saw how hard you work. I saw how curious you are and how responsive you are to like the market or sourcing. And he's like, I just believed that you would work hard and make sure I got my money back, basically. And that's a part of it sometimes, is actually just how hard you're going to work for your shareholders and to make it a success,
Hell yeah. Literally right before we came over here, I hopped off an investor call because we're raising right now.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And it was like, it got so personal, talking about like life trauma, and it got really down and deep to it. And this guy was like, dude, I fucking like you, man. Like,
Great.
we're going to do something with it. And
Yeah.
it comes down to the people.
It does.
And why would you want to work with someone just because they see you as a number,
Yeah.
Especially if they're going to play a big role in your company. I assume he was kind of involved, right?
Yeah, well, his name's Stuart Thornhill. He was my MBA professor, and he's still a mentor of mine. He was the first investor in Saxx. He became one of the first investors in DOJA. He is still one of my best friends, and have huge respect for Stu.
That's awesome. How do you convince people to pay a pretty absurd price for a product that's normally very traditionally cheap?
I know, right? You can buy underwear for $2
And
a pair.
by the way, I got one pair of Saxx and a Christmas stocking 4 years ago, and I've probably purchased 40 pairs
Amazing.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love them. So I know why people buy them.
But how do you convert?
But how do you convince that your average, like I know I'll pay for quality, but how do you convince? That's the biggest objection that I always get. I could buy shorts for $20.
I know,
Why would
right?
I pay $50 for yours, right?
Well, I think it's the biggest signal you send to the customer is your price. It's what you think about yourself, really. You're telling them, I think I'm this. I think I'm cheap. I think I'm low quality, or I think I'm amazing. I think I'm luxury. So that's that big signal you send to the market, right, with your price. And then I always believe that you should be very authentic to who you are and what you believe. And I'm not in the discount category. I've always believed in really well quality built things. I love quality design. I love quality products. And so that was like part of the philosophy to be true to myself when I was designing Saxx. I was really cared about the fabrics. I really cared about the mesh. I was doing the best I could to make the best garment, and kind of had a feeling of like Porsche or BMW, like continuous engineering, continuous design improvement. I love design. And so it was just partly where you have to position yourself and then say to a customer, okay, you can spend, $20 on a pair of Calvin Klein at that time, which was the best, but I'm offering you a deal at $25 or $35 because you're getting the new innovation, the evolution, the best men's underwear in the world, and you're going to wear it, like you said, for years, hundreds of times, let's say, so quality. So your cost per use is pennies, or you can go out and spend $30 on a case of beer tonight, and tomorrow it's gone. And what was better, right?
Yeah.
This quality,
and you'll still be uncomfortable while you're drinking that beer.
Right.
But you're buying his happiness.
Yeah, you're buying
You're
happiness.
buying a good life.
Over a long amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like longevity.
And it's also funny how that same guy would say, hey, no problem for a $45 New Era cap, right?
Yeah.
I'll put a $50 hat on my head, but I'll put $2 on my package. It's like, it's a twist, right?
Good on you for being a good salesman. And I think I don't even know what the term would be, not anchoring, the comparison, right? I think that's such a great sales technique. Like you're willing to spend that on weed or beer, but you're going to let your boys down there suffer. Like,
or even like a nice sweater that you're going to wear twice a year because it's your nice sweater, yet it's your most expensive. And so like the cost per use thing, I think is so important.
It's really important when you're pitching your product to all the entrepreneurs out there to put the people that are listening to your pitch in the problem. So when I started pitching Saxx early, I'd always be like, it's the 16th hole on the golf course. You're with your buddies. It's 85 degrees out. Could you be more comfortable? You're a construction worker. You're sitting in the excavator. It's, hour 8. Could you be more comfortable? Like I could go on for days on this and reach every guy. And, we all could relate that we could all been more comfortable, but no one had really just taken that extra step to do anything about it. And it's kind of like, oh, why didn't I think of that? But I think all great ideas are almost like that, like, why didn't I think of that? And then you're like, oh, that's a good idea.
Hell yeah. So it's, so you would agree that when you first came up with it, you were like, this is going to be big.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be big. I thought it was a good idea. And I was kind of like, okay, let's walk down the multiplication. I have this problem. And do other guys have this problem? Yes. Like there's 3 billion guys in the world, right? And then you segment the underwear market. And so maybe there's 1 billion people who are interested in this, and times $25, times $50, times repeat purchase, times, it's a really interesting segment.
The awesome thing about underwear, and this is, we're making our own underwear. By the way, I wish I had known you were going to be here.
Okay.
I brought you a pair of our shorts, same pair that Phil's wearing right there. I hope you're a large. Are you a large?
This is amazing. No, this
perfect,
is perfect, man.
Hell yeah.
This is very similar to like the Richard Branson story, right?
Yeah.
Where humbly for me, right? This is
awesome.
I love
great.
that.
I look forward to wearing those.
The awesome thing about underwear, though, is like, and in my own experience, when you buy one pair, what do you do? If you really like it, you replace everything.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's not like a t-shirt where you can't wear the same t-shirt every day, obviously, but you can wear the same color underwear.
Yeah.
But you guys have multiple different
staple.
colors and variations and everything. So.
And we got the, everyday, the performance, the different cottons. When I started, I thought it was going to be a sports underwear, actually, because I was from sports, and I thought it was going to be a performance, kind of an Under Armour type of vibe. But then people started wearing them more every day because they were so comfortable. Yeah. And then people said, hey, what about making them in cotton and this type? And so I just listened to the customer all the time. So when I started, I thought it was going to be this, but by listening, it became that. And then it was like, let's make a boxer brief, let's make a trunk, let's make long legs, let's make long johns, so then it just was listening to people what they wanted, and then I'd go make it.
Was there any specific moment when you can think back and think about maybe like your biggest bottleneck that you faced in growing Saxx, and you're just like, how do we get past this? Or was it pretty
Good
smooth
question.
sailing once you were able to really start
I
launching?
think it was the growth factor and working capital, So what I love to share with entrepreneurs, and it took me a long time to learn, is a growth factor is, if in my words, I don't know what the definition actually is, but it's like the amount of things you can buy if you sell one. So like I use the example of a Hermes bag. It might cost them $50 to make it or $100 to make it, but they sell it for $1,500, $2,000, $30,000. So they can sell one bag and make many, many, many more. So their growth factor is incredible. That's an incredible business. And it took me a long time to realize that with Saxx. But so if you have your business, for example, if you sell one pair of shorts, how many more can you make?
Not a lot at the beginning. I was
That's
buying
right.
them, I was buying them for $15,
Right.
selling for 50. Sales were great. And at the end of the month, I'd be like, where the fuck did the money go, man?
Yeah.
And then, recently we just switched over to better manufacturers, and it's been game changer.
So that's what I love to share with entrepreneurs. If I could have learned that earlier, I would have been much better off and not all the brain damage of working capital. And then in apparel back then, it was much more power based to the retailer. Direct to consumer was not as balanced. And so there was a lot of 120 days payable, 63% margin for the retailer. It was different times, let's say. And I think for all entrepreneurs out there, I wish you luck. I hope you have a business where when you sell one, you can make 100 more.
Yeah.
The other bottleneck I remember speaking about the thought it was going to be more of an athletic driven underwear is we had quite a large inventory of the long leg performance compression underwear. And it was the least popular. So we were selling out of sizes in the everyday cotton. At that time, it was called bamboo, really soft. And we had so much a surplus of the athletic compression underwear. And it was a bit of a like, okay, again, we need the capital. And then there's the lead time. How can we get creative and sell through this item we're long on? And I think that's a consumer packaged good issue. Any CPG is you're going to have to respond to market demand, and you're not going to be as nimble as you want. So you're going to have to find creative ways to deal with your overstock.
What was your creative way? That's
Yeah.
What was your creative way?
Trent was great because of his sports background. So he started going like hand selling to sports teams and getting them in the locker rooms. And equipment managers started buying full team orders, which would be a great 50 item, or 100 purchase because each player would get a couple pairs. And so he started with his buddies in baseball and his buddies in hockey and like getting them into those. And it really actually helped us sell through the line that was like stagnant or tougher for us.
Do you think people are more or less trustworthy these days versus those days with young entrepreneurs? Like if I were to do the same thing, if I were to go into a MLB locker room and say, hey, you should buy my shorts. Like, do you think people are going to say, fuck off, or hell yes?
With your energy, they're gonna buy,
Right.
because you're authentic
Hell yeah.
and
you
you
look the
believe in
part.
your product, and these are the things. So I think it's the same. I think human nature hasn't changed much in the sense of that trust feeling.
Yeah.
But I think like the word trust to me is what you're trying to build as a brand, and to the customer, you are trying to build trust. You're not trying to just put this brand in front and say, this is what I am. You have to prove it to them, and you have to, have a quality product, and then they'll be like, okay, maybe this guy does know what he's talking about, or it's built well, and then it lasts and it's durable. So there's like people who give you the chance, but then it's up to your product to earn their trust.
Fair.
And I'm a big believer in our experience that your brand is you, whether or not you've been clear with yourself about who you are or not. And so I think the self-discovery journey of like, what do you love? What are you good at? What are your experiences? And being able to build your brand around authentically your special set of conditions and skills. Like he was good at the sports selling because that was huge in his background. He played high-level hockey, baseball. That was a natural fit. The trust was there. He already had a network of people.
Creds, yeah, for sure.
And we all have that in different ways. And it takes it's actually an exercise to sit down and understand what is your web of experiences and network and skills and expertise, and how did you grow up to be able to build the brand that's super authentic to you. And then it's like the world's your oyster because nobody else has that. You're automatically unique.
Yeah.
And so if you can define that and then go forth and execute, you build trust because you're authentic. You're really clear on where you're going to excel. And then, you know, it removes a lot of roadblocks that we put in our own way because we're like, oh, everyone does this. I should do that. Or like, this is the natural next thing. Well, maybe not. So I think like Trent was so clear in who he was, and Saxx was the embodiment of high quality, but some humor, you know, athletic, but also casual, and like these things that it was really easy to go forth and like sell.
You guys started it in what year?
2006.
And when did you exit?
We sold 90% of it in 2011, and then we kept 10% as a piece. And
So only 5 years though.
yeah,
That's pretty fast.
It was
Scale
all
to-
really
Wow.
fast.
yeah, it was really fast. And I always believe too that if you can get your brand into the hands of people with more experience and connections to make the brand reach its potential, your equity by default is going to reach its potential.
Yeah.
So I've never been very egotistical, let's say, on Trent versus Saxx or Trent versus DOJA. It's always about the company, and I've staked and I've got my piece, and then I want to give it to the next guy to kill it and take it on if he's better than me at it or she's better than me at it, and I'm the benefactor of it. And in one way, you didn't have to do all the hard work.
It's kind of like you could really relate that to like a father being his son's high school baseball
Totally.
coach. And then he's like, I love you and I want to coach you, but I can't get you to the big leagues and then
That's the true story of my college roommate, Matt Smith, who was a first round pick of the Yankees. And our pitching coach at Oklahoma State was John Farrell, who was the Boston Red Sox manager eventually.
Yeah.
And Smitty was an amazing baseball player the day he showed up at Oklahoma State. And then Coach Farrell coached him for 3 years, and he became even better, first rounder. And then Coach Farrell's like, you have to go on. I've taught you everything I can teach you.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he goes on and has a major league career. And it's just, that's an
Badass.
amazing truth. Exactly what you just said.
Hell yeah. So did you know you wanted to sell it, or did the opportunity, you're like,
In the original business plan, the
Yeah.
plan was to sell it. And I always, with all of our businesses, have at the last pages of the business plan, like 3 or 4 different strategies for exit at any time.
so you set it up to sell?
Yeah.
That's-
You
I
build
always like to
back
ask
from exit or liquidity of some kind.
Yeah.
And we promised the investors that was the plan as well.
Mhm.
We wanted to build it up and then sell it. And so it was all aligned. And I'm a big guy about writing things down. What do you want? And whiteboarding the dream situation. And then, you know, 7, 8, 9 times out of 10 in our life, it's happened.
What did that feel like, by the way?
It felt great. You know, it just felt great that we were successful. It builds your reputation. It builds your track record. It was a dream come true, financial independence, all those things. But then, like I said earlier, it was also one of the lowest times in my life because I had done grad school and then I was working 7 days a week with Saxx. We both were. And some of my friends thought I was literally like sick or had like cancer. I was like 175 pounds when I sold the company. And mentally, I was a little shell of myself, truly. And I share that vulnerably with all entrepreneurs. And I spent a lot of time in the bottom of my like empty pool in my new house, just kind of like painting it and just staying away from people, society almost. I was just like, had to rebuild my energy, my motivation. And I use the metaphor again to baseball of like, before the season starts, you work out and you prepare for spring training, right? And then there's spring training and you figure out what you're going to do or what the plan is, right? And then the season starts and then that's the game. And you got to, you know, in a business that could be 5, 6, 10 years that season.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like grad school was 2 years, then Saxx was like 5. So I had like a 7-year season where I was working so hard and forgetting to eat for days and things like that. And it was a really intense time, but then also one of the best times in my life. So it was a springboard to the things we did in the future as well.
And then you're like, well, now what? And then
Well, that's part of it. I think transitions are always awkward. You know, if you think about anytime you're in a big transition, it's not totally smooth and it's full of different emotions. And people are like, how are you doing? And it's such a, like, how long do we have to talk about that question, you know? And when you sell your business, no one really prepares you, for how to do it. There's not as many courses about exit. How should you structure a deal? Should you keep any equity? What about the legal standpoint? And all of these things we were trying to learn as it was happening in real time and not fuck it up. And then when it was done, it was like, okay, like we're not on the ship all of a sudden. And now we're like in the water and we're stoked because we like have a nice other boat, but we're not really like knowing where we're pointed. And so the transition was nice because it was, serene. It was a great exit in the sense, and we got what we wanted, and that was great. But it was also, like Trent said, kind of a time to regroup and to
rebuild, re-energize, just get the philosophy back, and then still dream, right? We're still dreamers and kept our eyes open and
tried a couple other things.
Yeah, how long, what's that grace period? How long do you take off and just chill before you say, all right, let's go throw it all back into something else?
Well, he started building houses.
Yeah, we started doing some real estate development and things, but I think it's like maybe 6 months, a year it took me to get my weight back up.
Like not that long though in the grand scheme of things.
No.
It's like, oh, I spent 7 years building, sell it. A year later, like, all right, next thing.
It was just like another way to rebuild the mental and physical factory, to get started again. And with many of our ideas, we weren't necessarily like looking for the next big thing, but I'm always open-minded. We're always traveling. We're always looking for what's happening. And I was sitting with one of my friends and he was saying that Canada was going to legalize cannabis in the near term. And I was really surprised. I was like, no way, that sounds interesting, and he was a black market grower. And I was like, wow, that's great for you. You must be pumped. That's going to be great. And he's like, no, man, fuck the government. Would never do that. It's bullshit. And I'm like, oh, really? Interesting. And then I go do another little poll with some of my other black market buddies. And I'm like, this is great, right? Like, you're probably going to put in an application. Like, maybe he's not, and they're like, no, man, I don't want the government to know who I am and all this. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And so then we decided, Ria and I and one of our co-founders, Ryan Foreman from Saxx, that we were going to put in an application and start a cannabis company.
So you did it again with your old co-founder.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. It seems like you guys have a team and you just continue with that same team.
Yeah. He was part of actually the acquiring company for Saxx, and he helped build the better e-commerce site. He was an e-commerce like whiz, again, way before Shopify. And when they announced how Health Canada, the federal agency, was going to allow cannabis sales to happen, it was only online. So we knew, again, being sales-focused people, like that's our belief in business, is you need to be sales-focused. We were like, we need to be able to get the sales. Ryan needs to be on the team. He's the e-commerce genius. So the three of us were like, this is the team.
He's a great operator as well.
He's a great operator, yeah.
And so the three of us decided to put our own money up, many millions, to try to get this Health Canada license. And at every turn, Health Canada would tell you.
And you probably don't know anything about cannabis, right?
Well, I do, because I grew up in the Okanagan, which is like British Columbia is kind of like Napa of wine, but also
But I mean,
cannabis.
like the business, because like someone who loves wine might not necessarily be, even my stepdad always says this, like just because you love working out doesn't mean you'd be a great gym owner. You know what I mean?
Well, that's it. And Trent knew nothing about pattern making or sewing when he started Saxx. So I don't think our fundamental belief is that you need to know how to do the thing. Sure. You just need to know how to put the team together and to focus on those milestones and get them achieved to a high level. So for us, that was like, we hired a master grower. You had to have
we had to build out a facility.
You had to have a scientist on
quality control people. It was very pharmaceutical. It was a medical program at this time. And so we had this dream to be very high quality, very high cost again, luxury. And where the industry was going was very low quality, low cost, very medicinal. And so I kind of recognized an opportunity to create a brand and parlay or build off of the reputation of BC Bud and BC Weed. It's really well known around the world. And so we set out on this direction. And Health Canada, again, like you have to have grit as an entrepreneur and persistence. Those are two guaranteed traits you must have. And Health Canada would always tell us, no, you're not going to get a license. No, you can't do this. No, every day no's. And we would politely say, thank you. We'll fix that right away.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Thanks for bringing that up. We're on it. We appreciate you guys. We really want to do a good job for you guys. And then the next week they would come with a letter that says, quit. You guys are never going to get it. You're too small, or this was going to be longer. We'd say, we'll wait.
I think it was like 4 years between our initial,
applied in
starting?
2015 and we didn't get the
Okay.
license until 2017. And you had to build the whole facility out before they'd even come inspect it. So we literally put like millions of dollars out
before even having
any
a
chance.
license.
No chance that not even a probability that we were going to get it.
Mhm.
Wow.
And so they were always trying to get you to quit or get off the track, and we just wouldn't. And so eventually they were like, okay, we're going to come inspect, like you guys are going to fail. And we're like,
That's
can't
so
wait for you guys to
crazy.
It
come.
was a crazy time.
So that's like for everyone listening, that's probably like the equivalent of like opening up a bar, like
Yeah.
hoping that you get a liquor license, right?
100%.
Yeah, totally. And even worse in
And
the
even
sense that
more.
like there's thousands of liquor licenses. At this time there was 0 federal cannabis licenses. So you were really hoping for that lottery, right?
Yeah.
And so
But you're just like, it has to happen.
we
Yeah.
believed in ourselves again, and we thought we were doing everything right and hiring the right people. So we
Yeah.
expected when they'd come inspect that we would pass, and they came and inspected, and fortunately we did pass, and they reluctantly issued us a license. We were one of the first licenses in Canada.
Mhm.
And then, like I say in my presentation in public speaking, it's a lot of your idea value is timing and luck. A lot of entrepreneurs think that the value of their business is all their idea. And in my experience, it is not. The value of your idea is about 1/3 your idea, and another third the timing, and another third luck. And sometimes you can line all those 3 up, and it's the best case scenario.
And like a trend you'll notice is, in speaking about timing and luck, is that like our timing windows are fairly small for the level upon which the business grew or what we sold it for. So the lesson there, I think, is like, if you think you have a great idea and all the market indicators are happening, go forth as quickly and efficiently as you can, because it's only going to improve your chance of good timing and good luck. Trent is like,
We're very speedy.
pedal to the metal. Like I was sometimes like, oh my God, what the hell is the rush? Like everything was a rush. Now
We only
I
have
look,
so many years on this earth. I love it.
Hey,
yeah, and now I
so
look
many
back and the
steps.
windows do close.
Yeah.
The windows do close. People copy your idea. Policy changes in government,
Capital
market
dries
trends
up,
change.
Faucet
Yeah,
shut off,
like
we
you gotta seize while the iron's hot.
we wanted to have the opportunity to be in a no incumbent marketplace. There was no competitors. Everyone was starting from the starting line. And with our marketing chops, it's like, that's the best. We'll compete against you guys. And so we started this really adult use rec retail brand, which wasn't even on the radar yet. So everyone else, again, was doing this medicinal thing, but we forecasted or believed it was going to go adult use rec retail when no one else really did, or very few people saw that. And so we bended some rules to market when you weren't allowed to market. And we did some things to get the brand out, beg forgiveness. And we took the company public. We raised capital.
How many years were you operational after the license?
After we got the license, then we had something to raise with. So then we raised capital and raised about, I think it was 18 million at around 40 cents, which was like about a $40 million company valuation. And then over the course of the next year and a half, started to acquire some other cannabis companies across the country, and grew our distribution, grew our brand, medicine patients at this time. And then
They're all new things to you, right? You had never acquired brands before. You would never.
No, but we just basically grew that, and then Health Canada comes out that they're going to go adult use rec retail. So then they changed the program just right into our funnel or our strategy,
Which we were pressing on quick. That's why you acquire, right? For speed to market. So if
Yeah.
you can get those and acquire them, then you own that market, this market, and now your, market share grows overnight.
We got a $10 million strategic from a really large producer that really wasn't good at branding. And then the stock price is going up, the capital is going up, we're getting strategic investments. The timing of the industry is getting so much worldwide attention now. So investors are starting to put in money, institutional, retail.
Everyone wants to get in.
It was like the internet kind of buzz, right? And so this is happening at this time, and we're about to do a merger with another big company called WeedMD, and we are going to become a big competitor to Canopy Growth, which is like the Nike of the space, the big boy, the guy with all the capital, $1 billion valuations and hundreds of millions of dollars raised. And then the weekend, it's Friday afternoon, and I get a call from another person in the company that says we're going to be getting acquired from Canopy Growth. They were putting in an offer to buy us. It's called an interloper bid, and I didn't even know what that word meant. And we were about to do this deal like on Monday with this other company, and then Canopy Growth came in on a Friday and made us an offer we couldn't refuse.
Damn.
And we agreed to sell the company to Canopy Growth on a Friday. They paid the $10 million break fee, and the valuation at that time was approximately $180 million that we sold that company for on that Friday. And then, like I said, timing and luck, in the next month over that time, as we're waiting for our deal to close, Canopy got acquired by Constellation Brands, the big international beverage company.
Oh, yeah.
And then that doubled the value of our deal just while we were waiting in the weeds. So we got very lucky, but like I always say, we were on the field, we had the brands, we had the team, and that turned the value of our transaction into 630 million Canadian.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing though, is like, I really respect you guys and appreciate how you say that over and over. Like, we're so lucky, but you guys are in there doing it, working hard.
Oh yeah, we were grinding.
We also had just had 2 kids. We'd also weren't totally sure. So we were running also a winery that we started because we didn't know where this was going to go. So we had planted vineyards and we were doing that like passion project. And it was like,
we had great CFO.
busy.
We had built something that was going to be tough to compete with at the same time though. Yeah. So that was why we got acquired, and we filled in a lot of geographical gaps and branding gaps. So like as we were building this, we were always dreaming to get acquired by Canopy. It was always on the whiteboard, like, let's get acquired by Canopy. And then that's exactly what happened, you know.
And you know what? That's another good way to kind of look at your business opportunity, is to look at a really big blue chip company in a space that you want to be in. Like, let's say it's beauty, or let's say it's fashion. And what are they lacking? You know, what are they missing? And then build, that's the problem. You've just identified the problem, right?
Fully agree with you.
And so then you're like, okay, so this is my target exit. This is how I build the thing that they are not, that will be easier for them to acquire than to build from zero. So you build the thing, then you start trying to find out who to take meetings with. And now you can present yourself as, you should acquire me. I've already done all the heavy lifting. You can gain all the value from your distribution and your manufacturing that I can't do. So, you know, it's like a really great game plan for that. Like, how do you know if you have a market opportunity? Well, if the big dogs are doing it.
To hear that from you guys, because that's what we're trying to do right now.
You want to build a little pirate ship, I say. You want to be a little pirate ship and do all the things the big guys can't do, and do all the, you know, questionable, great marketing that today is tough for the Coca-Colas to do, whatever, you know.
And shareholders to answer to.
And then I always try to advise entrepreneurs too, like if you want to sell your company to LVMH in the future, then try to get a strategic from them now to try to ingratiate yourself with them, show them that you got the same values, show them that you can.
What do you mean by a strategic? Like, so for us, that would be Lulu, I would say. Lulu or maybe like Aloe or Viore, with the intent to compete with Lulu. They got to capture the young guys, right? So I'm curious, what would you mean strategic?
Those are great examples, yeah. So you want to look at the larger companies in your space, or the conglomerates that just buy everything, and say, how do I fit in that company? And then also look at, have they made a strategic before? And at what stage did they invest in that company? And
so he's saying, if you're raising money, you go to them and say,
raise you're doing right now, for example, you should definitely be approaching strategics to say, you know, I think, to her point, you guys could help me bring my costs down, is a great way to get a strategic, because their scale, now these shorts go down by another 50% on your cost of goods. You share that benefit, and they don't have to do any more work. They already have the systems and the factories and the plug and play.
And if you prove yourself in the points that you align on, quality, the market you're building out, then they're eyeing you and watching you to acquire you, essentially.
And then you'll be at the, you know, Magic convention in Vegas, or the project convention in Vegas that I'm sure I'll see you at next year.
It was, you know, Built Basics, right?
Right.
So literally, like I sourced those on Alibaba the first time. I've always been like a branding and sales and storytelling guy, right? Yeah. I don't know anything about clothes or the back end, but we're talking to the founder of Built, and he's like, this is awesome. I love this store. I'm telling him like how we give away, our thing is like, we give away gear to people who lose weight, right? So like if you
Oh,
are really
cool.
overweight or even really skinny and you buy any one of our items and you gain a ton of muscle or you lose a ton of weight and you no longer fit in that, we'll send you like a higher size or a lower size for free, right?
That is a great concept. I love
Thank you. Yeah, no one else does that.
So
too.
this
Like,
this
that's
gentleman that you're speaking about, right? He could be a great target as a strategic.
great. So he was thinking about being an advisor, but he wanted something ridiculous. But he's a great guy though. But maybe something happens there. Who knows? But yeah, he was talking to me and he was like, "This is awesome. What are your cogs?" And I told him, he's like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
He just freaked out. He's like,
Right?
"You need to book a ticket right now to Magic. It's in about 2 weeks."
Have you been to Magic?
Yeah, my co-founder and I went.
Yeah,
We
that's
bought a
where
ticket
Cool.
right then, and we
I
went.
walked Magic for the first time just as an observer, and then sourcing at Magic, felt all the fabrics, notions, and then you go to Project, you see like the cooler brands that are coming up, and go to all the side shows, and I recommend
Which one's Project? What's that?
Project is just at the same time usually as Magic. It's in New York and Las Vegas, and it's kind of like smaller 10x10s or smaller brands that can't have the Levi's, square block at Magic.
Yeah.
And a lot of cool brands there. There was Curve, which was a lingerie and underwear show at that time that we would walk through. And I encourage all entrepreneurs to go to their industry trade shows in Europe.
Just walk it. If you don't have to do the whole booth thing. Just even walk it.
First year, just go check it out and then write your little like dream spot for next year. I'm going to be in B13,
And wear
right
your
on the
gear,
underwear row,
advertise.
go to all the parties, make sure you're checking in at booths. Hey, where's the after party? Oh, where's the after party? And then you go to all the after
Are these
parties.
like actual parties or just like?
they're great.
Oh, there's
really?
so
They're so
much
fun.
peripheral.
Is this kind of like
parties and
LA Tech
events.
Week, the equivalent in a sense?
Probably.
Okay.
Every trade show event, every trade
I didn't
show
know there was
has
parties
it.
after.
Yeah, this is the playbook for any trade show, whatever your industry
And wine
is.
industry was like
You got to
that,
go the first
tech.
time, just walk it, but and then you got to go to the good restaurants during the show. That's where all the CEOs and lawyers and investment bankers are, right? So it's
The
not
hotel lobby
like
bar,
I've
the
learned
nicest
this, I guess
hotel
it's
lobby
not
bars have a
obvious,
lot of those people
but
hanging in them.
that's a big part of where all our transactions have gotten done, actually.
Wow.
Is at conventions and after the big speaker talks, then that night you're at the restaurant. Hey, I saw you speak and you're great. I got this company. I think we'd fit great. Oh,
And
my
if you
lawyer's right
know-
here. Talk to him. Send me the email. Oh, well, thanks. Have a great night.
Trent's
Yeah.
done a good job just recognizing people. So
Wow.
he'll know people in the industry and he'll just like go to shows and he'll recognize them and he'll be in an elevator and he'll literally have to do the elevator pitch and come out and he'll have like
I've done a lot of elevator
an email
pitches.
address and-
Real elevator pitches, where you see a famous guy like Joe Minram on Toronto. I'm walking down the road and I see Joe Minram, famous,
Started
Joe
Club
Fresh,
Monaco.
Club Monaco, so many amazing fashion brands, fashion icon, just a great guy. And I see him, I'm just walking down the road. I wasn't going into that building, but I see him. So now I'm going
You're
in
staying
that
here
building.
too? Oh,
No, and I get in the elevator and it's Joe Minram, right? And I give him the pitch about Saxx and we're talking about it. And then the elevator door opens and it's his investment company's floor, And so now it's like just serendipity and I just keep riding on like I was going somewhere. But then now Joe Minram and I are buddies still to this day.
Yeah.
Or Nick Graham, the founder of Joe Boxer, I knew what he looked like and I knew who he was. So then when I saw him walking around at Project in Magic, I just go up to him. Hey, I'm a Canadian entrepreneur in underwear too. Right away, you got him, right?
That's okay. So this is what so many people are terrified of doing, right? And I think this is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
It's being willing to, going up to anyone that you could get rejected, right? Totally. How do you, does it just come down to just being a good, genuine person, or how do you go about an interaction like that without seeming like a freak?
Yeah, I know, right?
Hey, my name's
Hey,
Trent.
I'm a
Nice
big
to meet you.
super fan.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very genuine in that I'm always putting the feathers on them. Like, I really respect you, and I do. I'm not just blowing smoke. Like, I respect what you've done with Joe Boxer, and now you've done a little research, and they might, know that you're coming from a good place, and definitely don't try to hit them up with too much time, or get into their day too much, but you can definitely get in there and introduce yourself and get a little break of the ice, and then make a way that you can drop a card, make a way that you can give people things. I was always giving people Saxx because now you're building reciprocity, and now
Want
you're
some underwear?
Yeah,
What's that look
yeah,
like?
totally.
Do you have it in a box or anything?
Yeah,
Or is it like,
always
okay,
giving
perfect.
away pairs.
everyone always said they were extra large. I'm like, okay, haha, joke.
Yeah. And I think then also just being genuine that you are looking up to them as a mentor. You're not approaching them as someone trying to get something. You don't want a job. You just actually respect them, and you would love it if they shared 1 or 2 jewels for my journey. And then a good entrepreneur is going to say, thanks. Yeah. Hey man, tell me about you. Like, and then, or another girl might say, no, pound sand, I'm not interested. I'm busy. And now you as the entrepreneur are actually further down the road because now you have an answer. You don't sit on the fence and don't know if you just missed an opportunity. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Yeah.
That's the saying, but it's really true. So I always feel like that too for no's. When I hear no, I'm so glad to hear it. It's like, great. And could you tell me why? And then if they tell you why, now you actually just got a yes. You actually just heard why they said no. So change that little thing and then they say yes.
Yeah. One strategy that I like to use that my uncle, he was like an employee for 20 years, just started his own business finally. And he sat in front of the phone for 3 days straight. After the business was already created, it was like a construction management service.
Yeah.
And he said, he called me, he's like, bro, I can't make the phone call. I can't do it. And I was like, why not? He said, the company's already there. I said, you're good at what you do. You got the product, you got the service. It's right there.
Yeah.
Just call people. He says, I can't do it. And I said, bro, you need to look at this like, you need to take a Post-it, put the number 100 on it, stick it on your wall, and tell yourself, I'm not going to expect a yes on any one of these calls, but I will have a yes by the end of the 100.
Yeah.
Whether it's investors, pitching retail, anything.
Yeah.
Like I think in almost every scenario, if you call 100 people, you will have a yes by the end of it.
Yeah.
And you look at the overall
And you'll have
number,
100
not
new
the individual
learnings.
call.
Well, that's
yeah,
what to
100%.
say. If you don't adjust your pitch over the 100 calls, then
For
I
sure.
think you might
sure.
need to like
It's not for
think
you
that
then.
through.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to try and learn and adjust and adapt and iterate, like that's what entrepreneurship really is like constant adaptation and iteration to refining like what the market really wants. Because it's telling you if you're willing to listen.
Yeah, so many people, we just saw Gary Vee talk, and he's talking about consumer-centric decision-making and making decisions based off of the consumer, where so many people make decisions based off their own leadership views. I think this is going to be the best flavor. I think this is going to be the right price. What did the customer say?
Yeah.
And just listen and really listen and ask. A lot of people are nervous even to ask customers something, and they're already your customer, I think that's a really awesome opportunity to make your product or service better.
And they're probably more likely to buy if you ask them for feedback and you actually follow through with that. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay.
These are
So
a few jewels.
okay. Damn. All right. I'm going to ask one final question. First of all, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
This is something I'm like very also curious and passionate about myself, because I think finding the right partner long term is like the ultimate goal, right? I mean, that's why I feel like I'm working so hard and sacrificing so much so I can like set myself up for the perfect life and partner, right?
That was
You
on
guys
his
found
list,
that
too.
early on. So congrats. I think that's so awesome. How do both of you guys go about managing or separating or maybe putting them together, business with also being a good husband, a good wife, and a good parent?
I think you have to like take one step back, and if you're looking for your partner now, look for what are the values that are important to you, and really think what are the values that are important today. And if you haven't written it down, I'm a big write it down guy, and so write down those values that are important to you and what you're looking for in a partner, and then that will guide your search so much better, right? I think that's so true. I mean,
a mentor told Trent to do that before. He was like, how do I find the right partner? Same kind of question.
I always write my dreams cards, right? And he's like, oh, this is working so well for you in business and the rest of your life. Why don't you do it for your partner?
You have to know what you're looking for, I guess.
Yeah. So there's mine. That's what I was looking for in a partner.
Precursor to
before I met Ria. That's what I wrote down, what I wanted to meet in a girl.
So
you can read it if you want.
Yeah, these are great. But I guess my question, one thing that I'd love to hear your answer first, and I'll ask you guys the question.
About how do you find the person?
No, how do you balance? Like,
it?
I have a business partner. He's my cousin. I love him to death. We're also good friends, but it's tough sometimes. You're like, dude, it should be this way. And he's like, no, it shouldn't.
Well, I mean, so number one, to Trent's point, shared values, number one, you can work with anyone that shares the same values. It's also easier for hiring. It's easier for retention. in any relationship. You don't get to choose your family, so that's not, but your partner and your work colleagues, you do. So do you share the same values? Well, if you're not clear on yours, that's going to be a more unsure choice. Then number 2, I think it's shared core goals. So like ultimately, what do we want? If you synthesize everything down and you take away this or you take away that and all the surface stuff, do we want the same thing? If you find someone that meets all of your values but doesn't also want children and you do, it's not probably going to work. Or if they don't have the same philosophy about marriage being, monogamous and long-term, well, it's probably not going to work. So if we can synthesize in business or in life, like what do we ultimately want? What's our core goals? And then it kind of makes the behavior easy to adjust. Like this behavior is not going to get us there.
Yeah.
Like this actually is taking us on the other way of our goal.
Yeah.
So I think if you can just be like, okay, well, ultimately we want to get along. We want to be able to like be on the same page. If something's getting in the way of that, it becomes really easy to talk about because it's the thing you're talking about, not the person.
Super important. Yeah.
Yeah. And like making the thing.
Working backwards from where you want to go is really important. Where do you want to go as a couple or as a business, and try to make a decision backwards from that. So if it was like when I wanted to be a major leaguer, does this get me closer or further away from being a pro baseball player?
Yeah.
Yes, no. And then it's an easy decision.
Yeah.
And then having a bit of a principled decision-making philosophy as well. So if it's financial, never put more than 50% of your net worth in one thing. That's like a principle I would have. So it's like, between your values and your principles, if you work backwards from those things and where you want to go, decision-making is actually really easy.
And I feel like getting really aligned with your partner when things kind of fall apart and then you want to realign, it's usually about empathy,
We've had conflicts
really
or
trying to understand where they're coming from. And a strategy that we often use, and we use it really authentically, it's not just like a tactic, is if I'm frustrated and I'm kind of feel like I want to come at him for something, I actually ask him, okay, what can I do better as a wife? Like, where could I do better? And he will maybe think I'm annoyed. Like, he kind of knows that I do that now, but he'll give me an honest answer. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's actually, this has really been annoying me lately. And or this is something I think I could use more of. And that starts to build a new bridge. And then the conversation continues and it becomes, what can I do to be a better husband, right? Like the reciprocity starts to happen as the conversation continues. And it's like, well, actually, this has really been bothering me. And then it's a really great way to approach, I think, conflict resolution is by starting with what you can do, because feeling like you have no part in any conflict is false. So I think if you can assume your responsibility as a lead-off versus making the other person the responsible party, I think it just helps build a real bridge and it creates like a more two-way conversation.
I love that. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's some sauce right there. That is really valuable.
Yeah.
You're like 90, and I'm sure 99% of people can't do that. So that's
well,
awesome.
It takes so much swallowing of like, I really want to talk about my thing.
Does that apply? Do you guys think that applies as a leader as well? Do you ever ask your employees, what can we do better to be better bosses, leaders? And
I think so, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's about personal development as well as an individual. I think if you're working to be a better person, then by default, your relationships are going to be better. Your business is going to be better. Your, buckets are going to be fuller, just because if you're feeling good about yourself and believing in yourself, then that's a much better place to start from. So I don't think they can be almost independent of each other. Mm-hmm. I've had lots of times feeling, not great, or we've had lots of conflicts. Like you may have this conflict with your co-founder, but ultimately, where do you guys want to go together? Mm-hmm. What is the vision that you share, and what are the values you share? And most of the battles I've had with my co-founders or people now, when I look back, it was so like little. It wasn't really an important thing. Actually, it was just a symbol of a power struggle or a symbol of a disagreement on strategy. But ultimately, it wasn't really what was important, or maybe a lot of times not even like the focus or the energy that we were putting on it combining was adding to the problem, when really it should have been focusing on a total other thing that was good for the business. But you're like fighting over like the color of a countertop. No,
that happens all the time.
So it's like
we should have done this color for this pair of underwear, whatever.
Thoughtful yielding, knowing when you shouldn't yield.
But how do you recognize that?
you got to know what's really important to you. Like sometimes manufacturers or people would be like, oh, this mesh is okay. I'd be like, no, it's not. Like, this is the whole thing. This is what it's all about. You're going to lose your job and I'm going to lose my job if we don't make it the best. Or they'd miss the seam by this much over.
And they think it's fine.
They think it's fine. And I'm like, no, throw this away, man. Throw this whole factory away because it's not good. Like, you guys got to make it this way.
Yeah.
And think about if you bought a pair of Saxx the first time, you're like, this is great. And then the next time you buy it and the mesh is different, or it actually chafes, or it's like it's got a different flat seam, now your trust is gone, right? And now instead of you having a great second experience where you go tell Phil and go tell some other people, now the brand dies right there.
Yeah. Damn. Well, this has been awesome, guys. Thanks. I literally could go for another hour, but I'm supposed to be on a meeting in 2 minutes too. So we'll probably have to
thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you guys so much.
To the entrepreneurs out there, just keep believing in yourselves and you're going to do it, and be a fountain, not a drain.
Oh, yeah. You guys are both on social media, right? I'll get your info from Phil and I'll link both your guys' stuff. Any of you guys want to go check out their stuff? I know you're both kind of on some media tours right now. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you again. This has been really, really insightful and impactful. Thank you.
Awesome. Good luck with your venture.
SquidHaus.